The silent voice relates to the struggles that most of us had at one point or another, or maybe even now, the sensation of drowning, going through the motions day by day, like some sort of machine. Shoya, the protagonist, has self-hatred for the actions of his past and the pain that he has caused. There is the central element of self-hate as a consequence of his past actions, a very prominent guilt stemming from bullying a disabled classmate. In his perception, the future looks bleak. He has lost most of his capacity to feel happiness, with his self-hate leading to isolation and detachment from his environment, that everything is his fault. He wants to end the inner demons he's fighting and escape from the situation, so he rationalizes that self-deletion is the only path, that life might be better without him. The story starts with him planning his self-deletion. He has it planned out on a calendar. He has quit his job and sold all his items. Also, in his isolation, he keeps to himself his intentions, maybe in most part because nobody can ever really understand you or what goes inside you, maintaining this perception as he further isolates himself. The very beginning of the story's plot starts at elementary school, where Shoko, a deaf girl, is presented to the class that Shoya is in. The whole class is at first very accommodating for her disability, even though they don't quite get it. Yet things are about to quickly deteriorate from here. First of all, the teacher isn't quite well equipped to accommodate her disability in the first place, coupled with the fact that he doesn't quite take his job seriously enough, leaving Shoko very vulnerable. The others begin to see her as a burden, and the efforts required to interact with her become more and more tiring for them. Shoya then starts to tease, make fun of, and bully her. The situation gets so bad that he damages her expensive hearing equipment on multiple occasions. This all culminates when the director finally intervenes after Shoko mysteriously lost 8 hearing aids. Shoya is then finally denounced as the main perpetrator and ostracized by his colleagues. Insults start being written on his desk, and Shoko starts to clean these writings, since she knows what it's like to be isolated and ostracized. Yet for him there needs to be an ulterior motive behind what she is doing. He does not understand, so he becomes annoyed, which ends in them getting into a fight, as Shoko finally lets out all her repressed emotions. Shoko leaves the school shortly afterwards. Observing the situation as a whole, this could have been greatly diminished in its severity or avoided completely if the teacher was more alert and aware of the situation at hand, especially knowing Shoko's situation. Unfortunately, the combination of her vulnerable state and a toxic environment was a recipe for disaster. Furthermore, using Shoya as a scapegoat is very hypocritical for everyone around him, since the others were encouraging, inciting, and rewarding his behavior. No one is an isolated single entity, but rather we interplay and interact with the world around us, adapting and reacting to the world around us. This, however, is not to negate complete responsibility away from Shoya, as his past actions definitely necessitate being reprimanded. Once Shoya is denounced, he doesn't seem to regret his actions immediately, as he never properly apologized for his actions in this stage of his life, and this is something that will come to haunt him. When he enters the same middle school as his other classmates, they make sure that everyone knows what he has done in elementary school, further isolating him and removing all hope of connecting with his old friends. When he enters high school, he has social anxiety, can't look people in their face, which is represented by crosses on people's faces, a sort of cognitive distortion where he sees himself existing in a sort of vacuum. Apathetic, numbing himself, getting detached from reality, becoming an observer of his life as it just passes by him. Having emotional outbursts without knowing why. Yet at the same time, he is completely selfless in the later stages of his life, which is shown by his later actions for those he cares about. Thinking that life would be better without him and that there is no forgiveness for his actions, he rationalizes that he needs to end it. But there is one thing left for him to do, and that's to apologize to Shoko. He finds himself asking for a friendship, and he basically tries to give back the happiness that he stole from her. This includes introducing her to new friends and wanting her to love herself again. He builds a circle of old school friends and regains some capacity to feel happiness again. Yet he needs to confront his inner demons, and when the subject of the past is mentioned, it all comes rushing back again. He internalizes all the responsibility onto himself, while exposing the hypocrisy of those surrounding him. As they bring the subject to light, each one maintaining a false narrative of the reality. Shoei exposes Naoka for her biases and interpreting the world the way she wants. Miki for really only caring about herself, being only nice to feel better, rather than a genuine action towards Shoko. She is taking no accountability for her part in the whole bullying incident, and Miyoko for being a coward. Yet he maintains his own false narrative, that he's entirely to blame for the whole incident, saying it's all my fault, conceiving himself as a single isolated entity. Yet we all as humans interplay and react with the environment around us. His mental confusion is only more exposed when he reveals that he doesn't really understand what exactly constitutes a friendship. This is proved when he says to Tomohiro that he doesn't know the first thing about him. Shoei in the past even asked Tomohiro what constitutes a friendship, revealing that he doesn't know if his desire to be friends with Tomohiro is genuine or not. To go back to the hypocrisy of others, how they are ingenuous, creating the narrative that they had no part in it, and externalizing all the blame onto Shoya. Shoei's motivation in large part for the past was because of validation and ignorance. The entire story culminates when he saves Shoko from self-deletion, at the expense of himself, when he ends up falling off a building in the process of saving her. The incident isn't done in a dramatized fashion, but rather realistically, and adds much value to the story. The two reunite afterwards and establishes their friendship even more concretely, with Shoko asking her to help him live. The story ends when he goes to a festival with her, and when he sees all the X's of people's faces finally falling off, symbolizing his growth as a person, and that he's finally free. With depression, there often doesn't seem to be a way out, but we will always have the capacity to feel love, joy, and happiness in life. That there's always a possibility to have, feel, and make connections with other people. You just need to find the right people. The whole movie was done in a muted and non-dramatized fashion. It is done in a realistic manner with well thought out characters, making this more than just a piece of entertainment, but a veritable experience.